Oh, so now the Royals want in. Now the Royals want to look at Kansas and try to get their hands on some star bonds. Is that how this is going to go? Hey, look at us over here. We'll take some star bonds off your hands. State of Kansas, come on, help us out here. I'm not buying it. No way, no how. Good morning, Monday. It's great to be here, back in the saddle on KCMO Talk Radio. And is this, with all the news last week around the state of Kansas officially saying to the Kansas City Chiefs, we'd like to explore a relationship with you. The Royals are in the back row saying, hey, what about us? Is this, comparable to, let's say, when the Royals go out there and they say, we are open to exploring a relationship with the state of Kansas? Is this like John saying he's open to exploring a relationship with, Jennifer Aniston or something like that? Or Mark, who's your celebrity crush? Come on, I know you got one out there. Who is your celebrity crush? Give me a name now.
I had Jessica Biel for a while.
Oh, okay. All right. You have nice taste.
Thank you.
All right. I don't have one. Just, I only love my wife, no one else. Never at any given point in time have I even thought about a celebrity crush. No way, no how. But with that being said, the Royals, in a news story that broke from John Holt over the weekend at Fox 4, will explore Kansas for a new home in light of star bond proposal. Well, that's nice, but has the state of Kansas expressed any interest in a potential partnership with the Kansas City Royals? I'm going to have on Kansas Speaker of the House Dan Hawkins at 7:05 to talk about this, because all we've heard from the state of Kansas is, yeah, sure, we're interested in the Chiefs. They have at no point said anything publicly about the Kansas City Royals, and they could have. Last week was their opportunity. If they wanted to explore both teams, they could have even just left it vague and said, we are open to exploring and talking to professional sports franchises about relocating to the state of Kansas. They could have easily done that. They chose to specifically only talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and nobody else. And then a few days after that, the Royals, and not only did they say this, according to John Holt, that they are interested in looking at the star bonds in the state of Kansas, they have hired lobbyists to their lineup, as John Holt reports, is now reflected in public record with the Kansas Secretary of State. So they now have lobbyists in Topeka who are going to explore the possibility of the Royals looking at these star bonds and seeing if they can finagle their way into some kind of deal with the state of Kansas. But if nothing else, this is potentially about leverage, which is what it's always been for these teams. Create leverage in some way, shape, or form. They do not want to leave. I don't believe they want to leave. So how can they create leverage? The only way to do it is to find a sucker. And in this case, it might very well be the Kansas legislature that then will get them what they ultimately want from whether it's Jackson County, Kansas City, Missouri, maybe Clay County, the state of Missouri, whatever it might be. They're trying to create leverage. I think if the Royals had an opportunity to create leverage using another city, I hate to say it, I don't want to be pessimistic, but I think they would have done that by now in some capacity. I think some point in the last 2.5 months, somebody would have floated something from Nashville, from San Antonio, from fill in the blank city, and we would have heard something by now. The Royals wouldn't have said it. That's just suicide. But there would have been some trial balloon floated out there where somebody would have conveniently leaked to the media, oh, yeah, I heard there was a phone call between John Sherman and fill in the blank mayor. That would have gotten people to, straighten their backs along their seat chairs and be like, whoa, we better start paying attention now. We don't want the Royals to leave. That has not happened. And that's telling to me that has not happened. That means maybe there's not the demand that they thought there might be. Maybe there's not the interest, whatever it might be. So now they've got to figure out, what do we do as we go back to the drawing board? Well, we look to Kansas. And it's interesting, too, the Royals have mentioned publicly the state of Kansas, or at least in this report from John Holt, before they've mentioned relooking at Clay County. So what is that all about? Is Clay County officially off the table? Because if they're going to look at Kansas before Clay County, that tells me that Clay County's done. They can't get the money that they feel they need from Clay County and from the Clay County taxpayer to ultimately make a deal like this work. But as I've said for the last few days, Kansans, and when I say this, I don't mean necessarily just fans. I mean politicians, really everybody involved who want to steal the Chiefs, I believe, are being complete fools. I think you're getting played here. And I put this up on social media, and it drew a lot of reaction. And there was one response in particular that I really respected because I think at least this person is telling the truth. They're not giving me the rope-a-dope, the runaround of, economic development or something. Have you been to Arrowhead lately? Have you driven around? It's a dump. So this comes from Ozzy on X. Ozzy wrote back to me over the weekend. He said, as a lifelong Kansan, I mostly just want to see Missouri residents get a taste of their own insufferable gatekeeping. Personally, I want everything to say exactly like it is right now. That at least I respect. That's just a Kansan saying, I've dealt with too many Missourians who are insufferable about this is really our team. It's not your team, man. Like, I at least respect that. You're just saying basically you want to poke the bear. You want to make them sweat a little bit. You want to make them feel like, you know what, this is our team regionally. Stop with the gatekeeping. That I respect. That I'm just like, that's cool. That's good. Like, I can get down to the weeds on that. I can be petty like that too. I'm fine with that. But I think there's a lot of people who feel that way, like Ozzy, but they don't want to admit it. They feel like Ozzy, but then they want to give you the big explanation about how, no, this is really about what's best for the region, and it's about economic development and all these things we can do out in KCK. But to Ozzy's point, that I'm good with. Mark, I know you're Mr. All-In on this deal, as you have been for the last few days. Do you see it the way Ozzy does? Can you just admit that Ozzy at least has a point here, Mark, since you, I know, quietly have wanted this team to move to Kansas for a long time?
Oh, yeah. Ozzy's got a great point there.
Okay.
I do think that the Chiefs getting the Star Bonds, I hadn't considered the Royals yet because that just happened this weekend, but I think that they'll have enough to pay off the Star Bonds and then be able to give the state back after that time is up.
Well, that remains to be seen. And I'm going to ask Dan Hawkins a little bit more, John, about how exactly a project of this size can ultimately be paid off, because I'm not convinced the money's there.
Missouri has nothing on Kansas when it comes to insufferable fans. It's most likely Ozzy started the...
Well, Ozzy looks like he's a K-Stater for what it's worth.
It's all part of the border war thing, Pete, because it's a yeah, but, because you can start with, KU basketball, KU football. Now that's coming up, but it's just jab, jab, jab. It's like a fencing match, so...
Oh, that's a great
Hard to
line.
say who starts it.
Yeah, and it depends on the sport, I guess, as much as anything else, right?
Well, we'll cover them all in the course of the argument.
Yeah, that's so true.
And the Chiefs fans from Missouri that are saying they won't cheer for the Chiefs anymore are kind of ridiculous.
Oh, that's ridiculous. Listen, that is ridiculous. That's so true. That's complete and utter nonsense. Been a lifelong fan. The team moves 15 miles away, and now you're like, I'm becoming a Houston Texans fan or something. I'm going to the Vikings. I'm a Broncos fan now. No, you're not. Be quiet. Dan Hawkins, Kansas Speaker of the House at 7:05. We'll get some more information on whether or not the legislature is actually interested in the Royals as much as the Chiefs, and more coming up next hour on KCMO Talk Radio. Happy Monday. Get it rolling on KCMO Talk Radio. I just want to hear the honesty from some people. Maybe, Mark, would you say this is partially you just saying, listen, yes, a part of why I want the Chiefs and maybe the Royals in Kansas is because I want to stick it to Missouri.
Oh, yeah. I get people from Missouri saying, oh, yeah, you live in Olathe. You're probably a Yankees fan. You're probably a Dodgers fan. The bandwagon, you know.
Oh, do they do that to you?
Oh, yeah.
Man. They did it to you growing
people
up?
on Twitter.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Was it tough as a kid, too? Would you get some crap as a kid?
Not too much.
Okay. All right. So you weren't in years of therapy dealing with your hatred from Missourians about your sports teams?
No.
They're not really yours. They're ours.
That was before social media, though.
Yeah,
so.
that's true. That's true. Kids weren't harassing each other on Snapchat and TikTok back in the 90s. Simpler times across the board. But the Chiefs say they're willing to talk to Kansas. The special session on this starts next Tuesday. The Royals said over the weekend, this was the breaking news, or I guess the new update to the story. The Royals said over the weekend that they want to talk to Kansas. Now, I don't know how much enthusiasm there is from the Kansas side, but Dan Hawkins, the Speaker of the House in Kansas, said this morning at 7 o'clock here on KCMO that they are very interested as well in talking to the Royals. They didn't include the Royals last week because they figured the Royals wanted to look at downtown KCMO. But now that the Royals say they want to talk to Kansas, Kansas says, let's talk. So that's where we're at on this whole thing right now. Mark's in Shawnee. Mark, you're on KCMO 95.7. What's happening, big guy?
Hey, Pete, thanks for taking my call. And I got to tell you, I agree 100% with your last caller. You made those points right before he came on. I was never a big fan of the Legends. I kept thinking, why can't we just follow the money? Where's the money? The money's in Johnson County. That's where the money is. They built the Legends. I thought, gosh, dang it, why couldn't they have brought that over this way a little further? But it's grown. They've got hotels. They've got the infrastructure. They've got the restaurants. They've got everything. They've got a professional soccer team out there. They've got the racetrack out there. To me, it's just common sense. KCMO had its day, and I'm not a pro KCMO or pro KCK. All I am is pro America, pro let the people decide. Get the politics out of it. Let's just do what makes sense. It's
but here's the thing. The people are not going to decide this. There is no vote. This will just be done by the legislature.
That's right. But we still have to look at where is the money at and where is the growth at. We've got closed hotels in KCMO or out there near the ball stadiums. I mean, just look at that area. That's become blight to me. When you look at the growth, it's in Kansas. And why can't we all just unite and say, hey, we got all these professional teams right here. It's going to be a bigger draw. It's the place to go. We got to follow the money, and we got to follow where the development is going. And that's unfortunately where it is.
You know what, though? Here's the thing. I would agree. Like, follow the money. If the Hunt family believes and John Sherman and his crew believes the place to be is Kansas, and you strip any government involvement out of it, that's fine. But that's not what we're talking about here. It's not about truly following the capitalistic model of where the money is. They're basically chasing some form of state monies or local monies. So that's where you can't just say, well, go to Kansas, that's where there's growth. They're just apparently going to go wherever they can get the best deal.
Well, that's how America has grown to be the great monopoly that it is because we go where we get the best deal. We go where the growth is. And if they get the best deal, it's because they got the people, they got the infrastructure, they got the industry out there that's going to really make this something. That's my thought, Pete.
All right. Thank you, Mark. See, America was not made great by corporate welfare. Okay? That's ridiculous. With all due respect, Mark, corporate welfare did not make America great. The men and women, the small business owners who cannot even sniff getting lobbyists in places like Topeka, they're what makes this state great. They're what makes this region great. Not doling out and getting politicians and lobbyists involved in some backroom, backdoor deal to move a billionaire family's business 15 miles down the road. That's not what makes this great. And I say this as someone who has great admiration for the Hunt family. Most recently, how they've backed Harrison Butker, what they've done for the region, what they've done for the team. Going back to the legacy of Lamar Hunt, I have immense respect for the Hunt family. But don't tell me that's what makes this country great. It's not at all. And it never will be what makes any of this great.
Okay, so maybe I'm just confusing what I hear, but lots of people are pointing to the Legends. That's already a Star Bond district, right?
Yes.
So I don't know if these can touch or how close you get them together, but it's already got monies up. They're already, appropriated, designated?
Well, they've paid off already.
Sure.
So this would be a new district that
But
they would create.
And now the money keeps generating, though, correct?
Yes.
So it's a district in and of itself. It didn't dissolve the district just because they paid it off, correct?
No, well, I think so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think so. I
All
think
right.
once they get paid off, there is no star bond
I just
district.
thought
It
money
goes
off
away.
the top beyond that point then became gravy.
Then those sales tax dollars go into the county coffers, the state coffers, but they don't get used to pay off the bonds anymore.
Okay.
So they would create and have to create some new district, which who knows how big that
Sure.
would be. Eric's in KCK. What's up, Eric?
Hey, gentlemen. Thank you for having me. So I was thinking about, get off here with a joke. What's the fastest way to make millionaires in Wyandotte County? Boom, you throw a Chiefs Stadium right out there, west near the Legends. All those home values are going to have to go up because somehow we're going to have to generate some tax revenue to help support the stadium. Correct, sir?
No, I don't think anybody wants to live near sports stadiums.
You don't think so?
No. I mean, look at Arrowhead. If people wanted to live around stadiums, I mean, the homes around there are dumps.
Sir, you were correct. And I've been going to there since.
I mean, do you want to live
I've
near
been going
Arrowhead?
there.
Look, I don't want to live near Arrowhead. Look at the place.
You're right, sir. I've been there a few times, fortunate enough to go there. I hear the races, and I'm like, oh, yeah, hey, the races are going on. I definitely know. I live out west there. I definitely know when the sporting games are going on because all the parking lots are full. And you know what? I think that there is a good opportunity, and you're absolutely correct with, the Hunt family. They're definitely going to go for what is the best deal for them. They're a business family, and, they have to make good business decisions for
And
what's best for them.
And Eric, I got to run, but I see what you're saying. I don't blame them for a second. I don't blame the Hunt family in any of this. All right? I really don't. They're doing what's in their best interests. But who are the elected leaders looking out for? That's the question. Are they looking out for you? Do you really think this is about looking out for you? Because I'm very skeptical on that. And nobody wants to live near these sports arenas. I mean, if people will live downtown by an NBA arena in some fancy, power and light kind of a district. But NFL stadiums, football stadiums, nobody wants to live near those. Nobody. Hope you had a great weekend. Glad you're back here starting your week with us on KCMO 95.7 FM, by the way. As we get that week started, we will have a chance to win $10,000 to Bass Pro Shops coming up at 7:50. And then we've got Kenny Chesney at Arrowhead tickets at 8:45 this week right here on KCMO. Lot going on, lot to give away to you. So on Saturday night, I was over at the Sheridan off College Boulevard there, right in Overland Park at their convention center, their ballroom that they have. And I was there because the Association of the United States Army had its 249th birthday celebration. And John Holt, our buddy at Fox 4, who does great work, who's going to be on the show this morning at 8:30, was receiving an award. Now, normally John would MC this, but he asked me a few months ago, he said, hey, I'm getting this award, which I'll tell you about in a second. Do you mind MCing this event on Saturday, June the 8th? And, I knew we were going to have, obviously, a third kid coming, and, the family time is valuable. But I said, you know what? John's a great guy. Obviously, it's an organization that I'm more than happy to support. So I said, sure, John, I'll be there. So it was an outstanding time. John received the Roger H.C. Donlin Patriot Award from Roger Donlin's widow. Roger Donlin, if you don't know the name, is a guy who received the Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War, the first person to receive the Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War. He had an incredible military career ending as a colonel, and he ended up spending the final years of his life in Leavenworth. He died this past January. His widow, Norma, is still alive, and I sat next to her on Saturday night. But this award has been given out here locally over the last few years to somebody in the Kansas City area. And this year, the winner was John Holt for the excellent work he does on the journalism side when it comes to our veterans. So John won this award on Saturday. He asked me to MC it. That way he wouldn't have to MC his own award. That would be awkward, right? Hey, the winner is me! He didn't want to do that whole thing. So I said, sure, I'm happy to do that and be a part of it. And I'll tell you what, too. As someone who's done a lot of these different events, MC'd these events at different levels, this was as tight of a ship as I've ever been a part of. We started at 6:15 on the dot. This thing was over at 8 o'clock. And I said to them, I was just curious. It didn't matter. I said, what's your timeline on this? They said, we should be done right around 8. I said, might be 8:05, 8:10. And I'm like, okay. Now, I do these things all the time with politicians, different political groups and whatnot. And I'll tell you, they plan for 2.5 hours, and you're sitting there 3.5 hours later saying, what the heck are we doing here?
It's kind of like a staff meeting at a radio station.
Yes, exactly right, John. I deal with it far too often. But I should have known, when you got military guys running the show, I look at my phone. It is 8 o'clock on the dot as I'm giving the final remarks. And I made a comment to the audience about this. I said, literally what I'm saying to you right now. I'm like, I do these things all the time. People tell me 2 hours. 3 hours later, we're all sitting there, getting antsy, wanting to get the heck out of there. These guys, 6:15 start. I'm wrapping the thing up at 8 o'clock. Normally, too, when I do these events, I'll get like a piece of paper. Maybe they, someone might hand me some toilet paper with some notes on it. I got a call Saturday morning before the event from the guy running the show, military guy. He says to me, hey, I've got this booklet printed out with all the, script for the night. He said, do you want your pages double-sided or single-sided? I'm like, wow, okay. This is the real deal. These guys aren't messing around. I said, double-sided's fine. I'll save the trees, but I'm not a tree hugger, but I'll save the trees for you. So it got me thinking just about military in general, right? And coming off of last week's show at the Eisenhower Museum, and, it's a topic that we've talked about in the wake of D-Day last week and whatnot, how we need so many more of these individuals, men and women, running our country, serving us after serving their country and putting their lives on the line, many of them, then coming back and serving their country when it comes to politics, serving their country in office, in a different kind of office. We need so much more of it, because when you hear these people and share their stories, and you sit at a table with these folks, as I did on Saturday night, and you talk to the widow of Roger Donlin, and you see how she sacrificed just as much as he did. She was raising several kids, all boys, 4 boys she had. They moved 10 times in 12 years. They lived down in Panama for a period of time where she would have to drive 2.5 hours to various events with 4 kids in the car. He would hop on the chopper for 15 minutes, but you get the point, driving through the mountains down there. It was crazy. Just hearing the stories of sacrifice, you have a different outlook on your country when you've done that. Now, I don't have it. I did not serve. But you spend enough time around these folks, and just through osmosis, you at least get a little bit of an understanding of how their lives have been so much different than ours, where they've sacrificed at every turn on behalf of their country and the American flag. And I'll never forget asking Norma Donlin, the widow of Roger, who, of course, this award in Kansas City is given out on behalf of the last few years, and he just passed away in January, a few days shy of being 90 years old. He was, once again, the first person to receive a Medal of Honor in the Vietnam War. I said to her, what was your favorite place to live? And, I figured she had some answer that she's been giving for years. And she gave even a better answer than I expected. She said, wherever I was at that time. And I'm like, that's an awesome answer. She goes, I couldn't think about where I'd been. I couldn't think about how this place I'm currently living stunk, or I couldn't fall in love with the place I was at because I knew we might be leaving pretty soon. I just had to appreciate where I was. The best place I was living, she told me, is wherever she was at that point in time. There's not a lot of us who could do that, who could live life that way. And this is coming from the spouse. So for me, it was a chance to sit back and realize, gosh, whether it's even, spouses of those who have served. These are the people that need to be much more involved in running our country instead of the hacks, the lawyers, the Instagram wannabe celebrities that we've got in charge right now. It's a damn shame. Back in 1970, we had 70 U.S. senators who served this nation. Now that number is just shy of 20. You can't tell me that that does not have something to do with the state of the nation and where things are right now. Coming up on KCMO right after the news on 95.7 FM, Caitlin Clark got absolutely hosed. We'll tell you why, what happened there. And Rashee Rice finally speaks on his tumultuous offseason, all coming up on 95.7 FM. If you missed it over the weekend, Caitlin Clark did not make the WNBA, or I guess you would say the Team USA Olympic team. Of course, the Olympics taking place this summer, and Team USA will not have Caitlin Clark on it. It is unfathomable to have Team USA leave off the most popular women's basketball player ever at the Olympic Games this summer, especially considering the Team USA is going to win by a mile. Like, it's not going to be close. The gap between the United States and the rest of the world is astronomical in the sport of women's basketball.
Haven't lost since 92, I think I saw.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going back 30-plus years.
So I'm kind of thinking when you got a team like that, it's kind of tough to work in new blood, on the other hand, maybe.
Maybe. But at the same time,
when you're talking about a scorer like that.
When you're talking about a scorer like that and a person as popular as that, and you've got a chance to capitalize on this moment, and you don't know when or if this moment's ever going to come around again. You've got a chance to welcome women's basketball to millions of young women around the globe with the biggest superstar on the planet, and you don't do it? What are you thinking, Team USA? Now, this was a decision made by the coaches and the staff and whatnot, but if you don't think this is about catty, petty politics, you're not paying attention. Caitlin Clark has been treated like a dog since she got into the league. And as we've noted for a long time, part of that is indisputably about her skin color and sexual orientation. You can't say that part out loud. Of course, you can't point out the obvious these days, but it's very clear what's going on. There is massive jealousy across the board that Caitlin Clark is by far the most popular player in the WNBA, and there's never been anybody close. Caitlin Clark is popular in large part because of her game. There's a Steph Curry element to her game. Is it that? Yes, she's also, from Middle America and is white and has a boyfriend and all these things that typically are not associated with WNBA players. Yes, that's part of it. But that's also what made Tiger Woods unique to the PGA Tour and relatable for millions of Americans who had never stepped foot into a country club before. Tiger Woods was relatable to those people. Golf was not a sport that really had it had a big fan base, but it was not certainly as mainstream as other sports because it wasn't relatable. Most people weren't going to country clubs on a Saturday morning, teeing it up for 36, spending tens of thousands of dollars on their golf game and their golf membership. Tiger Woods made the everyman feel like he could go play that sport. He could watch that sport. He could be a part of that sport. And Caitlin Clark, to a degree, is now doing that for the WNBA. So, amazingly, they decide to leave her home. And it's unbelievable. Now, what did Caitlin Clark say? To her credit, Caitlin Clark took the high road when asked about this over the weekend.
Caitlin, what was your reaction when you saw the USA team yesterday, the roster come out?
Yeah, I think I'm excited for the girls that are on the team. I know it's the most competitive team in the world, and I know it could have gone either way of me being on the team, me not being on the team. So, I'm excited for them. I'm going to be rooting them on to win gold. I was a kid that grew up watching the Olympics, so it'll be fun to watch them.
What was your level of disappointment not hearing your name on the roster?
Honestly, no disappointment. I think it just gives you something to work for. It's a dream. Hopefully one day I can be there, and I think it's just a little more motivation. We remember that, and hopefully in 4 years, when 4 years comes back around, I can be there.
That was Caitlin Clark responding to her Team USA snub with the Olympics taking place this summer in Paris. She took the high road, to her credit. She was not petty about it. But I will say this much. If you watch the clip, Caitlin Clark has a smirk on her face during the entire answer. It's kind of one of those smirks where she's like, can you believe these idiots? Like, that's kind of the look on Caitlin Clark's face as she's answering that question. You hear it, and you can almost hear the smile in her voice as she's responding. You can hear people when they're kind of smiling as they talk. And that's what Caitlin Clark is doing there as she's giving that answer. She's saying all the right things. She sounds like a politician. But deep down, she's like, can you believe how stupid these people are to leave me off the team? And she may very well use it for motivation. But, man, when you are Team USA, when you are the people in charge of women's basketball in this country, and you plan to leave for Paris without your biggest superstar, the people in charge are not using their brains. They're being petty, they're being small-minded, and they're not thinking about growing the sport. And this is an opportunity to grow the sport. I'd sit down with Claire and watch this summer. I still might watch a little bit, but certainly not as much as if Caitlin Clark was there. I mean, Mark, you going to watch with the girls this summer? I'm sure you will, but not as much as maybe you would have.
Yeah, we'll watch. We'll see. I mean, I figure they're going to win gold, so might as well watch a few games.
Yeah. But, Caitlin Clark changes the equation for so many. James and Shawnee, what's up, James? You're on KCMO. Good morning, buddy.
What's up, man? It's a rare occasion that I have to disagree with you, but today is that day. So my wife she's been involved with women's basketball since I met her.
Okay.
And this is I think that we get in a dangerous territory when we start doing what the left does, right? Like when we start insinuating or asserting that it's because she's white or because of this or because of that. Who is she better than on the roster?
See, you're asking a very good question. And the answer is, I don't know and I don't care. But you know what I am at my core, James? A capitalist who wants to see the sport grow for the sake of the women long term. And that's where this is a business decision as much as it is a basketball decision, because as we noted earlier, they're going to win no matter what. So if they're going to win no matter what, then you have to do what's in the best interest of your business at large, and that's to send Caitlin Clark over to Paris.
Yeah, and you can scrutinize the decision. I agree with this, scrutinizing the decision from a business perspective, right? Because she is a superstar. But where you lose me is when we start saying, oh, it's because she's white and straight. Because that's the stuff that the left does that we hate, right?
Well, but it's pretty evident that there's an element to that, to the Caitlin Clark hatred. Would you not agree with that?
No. How is it evident?
How is it evident? I mean, you sit there and you look at how she's treated during these games. Do you think it's just because she's a rookie who's popular, or do you think there's something else at play here?
100%.
100%. Just because nothing else about it, just that she's a rookie who happens to be popular. No more than that.
Right, and people want to when somebody gets a bunch of hype, right? So imagine that you've been in the WNBA, and this girl's getting all this hype, and suddenly the sport is founded because of this girl. You're gonna humble her. Like it's natural for you to want to humble her.
Yeah, maybe here's the thing, and this is
shut everybody up.
I'll add this to the conversation as well, and we talked about this last week. When you have prominent WNBA players in recent years who have talked about how difficult it has been to be straight in that sport, how they did not feel accepted in part because they were straight in that sport, and we referenced some of those stories last week, I can't help but think that there's an element of all this that factors into the equation.
I think there was, what was it, one person did a story on that?
Yeah, Yahoo Sports. That's one that we referenced from a few years ago.
And that was her perspective on why she didn't have a successful WNBA career.
No, she had a good career. She was a top 5 pick. She just talked about how she retired earlier than she wanted to.
Right.
In part because of her treatment in the locker room.
She was on the bench and she wasn't a star in the WNBA?
I think she did okay. I think she had a pretty good career. She had a 10-year career.
She did okay.
Mm-hmm.
So all those things factor into her experience, right?
Yeah.
So just because she says it was that doesn't mean it was that. That's her perspective, and like I wouldn't argue with her. No, that's not it. But I'm saying there's other factors, right?
Yeah, I mean, sure, there are other factors. I guess, yeah, there are other factors, James. I mean, have we had somebody come out and, listen, I appreciate the perspective. Have we had somebody come out and say, yeah, you're right, I'm being tough on Caitlin Clark because she's white? No, we haven't. But I really think it's naive to think that there's not an element of that in the way that Caitlin Clark has been treated here over the first few weeks of her WNBA career.
Yeah, I think it's fair to talk about it. When you want to be known for who you are and you got a flag and you wear the colors and you do this and that, then it's fair for us to take that into account in our perceptions as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. If you want to, it actually absolutely is a factor because the league goes and stakes some of its reputation on that, and yet they don't want you to talk about it.
Yeah,
they
can't talk about it.
You can't. No. Yes, we can talk about it. Number 2, I'll say real quick, Caitlin Clark's got hammered outside of just the play. I saw Angel Reese get collared by another veteran. So they're beating the rookies up. I get that. The rookies get it tough, but the thing that happened to Caitlin Clark was outside the play. It was on an inbounds pass.
Yeah. And that's just one of many things that have happened. That was the most egregious.
So that's the difference between the rookie thing and Caitlin Clark. She's getting hammered when we're not even playing the game.
Yeah, that's so true. And no, I'm not going to sit here and break down the WNBA roster or the Team USA women's basketball roster. I'm not going to do it. I can't. I don't care to do it. I promise you. That will be very boring radio. But that's the point. It's not about, is Caitlin Clark better than the last person taken on the roster? It's what do you do to grow your business? And when you have an opportunity to grow your business worldwide, this is the no-brainer thing to do. You have to do it. To leave her off of there is insane. And by the way, if you're the 12th, 10th, 8th player on the roster, you should be waving your hand up and saying, hey, you know what? For the sake of the game, I'll sit home. You send Caitlin. That's what should be happening.
One of the girls from the Las Vegas Aces hasn't played this year. She's been hurt. So there's kind of this rumor going around that maybe she'll claim that she's too hurt to play, and then maybe Caitlin will take her spot. That's still up in the air.
So they put an injured player on the roster.
Yeah.
Who is supposed to be back by the Olympics, I guess?
Allegedly. She is one of the best guards in the WNBA,
but she still is injured.
She's been hurt, yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. You monitor that for us, Mark, okay?
I will.
You're our WNBA expert. Mark's already looking up the lines on the women's basketball,
Over.
Team USA versus,
Slovakia. Over on the points. Over on the line.
You're all in. I can see it. Team USA minus 32.5. It's going to be like the early season college football games.
Yeah, those are tough to pick.
Yeah, those are. Yesterday was absolutely beautiful across Kansas City. Not so much in Vegas, where it was 100 degrees. And Donald Trump found himself doing a second rally since his conviction on May 30th. And there was one thing in particular that he said that I think applies to a group of people that most politicians don't typically try to appeal to. I mean, politicians will always get up there and they'll say things like, I'm your choice for fill-in-the-blank office because I'll put more money back in your pocket, whether it's through tax cuts or, on the other end, it's like, hey, I'm going to tax the rich guy, which somehow is going to help you. It just depends on who you're listening to and what their political bend is. But yesterday, President Trump said something in terms of a plan of his that I thought was a very good appeal, and doing it in Vegas in particular was very smart, where you have a lot of workers who work off of tips. And don't forget, Nevada is a swing state as well going into this year. So this was a good place to kind of roll this idea out there and get people in Nevada who might be on the fence on your side.
So this is the first time I've said this, and for those hotel workers and people that get tips, you're going to be very happy, because when I get to office, we are going to not charge taxes on tips, people making tips. We're not going to do it, and we're going to do that right away, first thing in office, because it's been a point of contention for years and years and years, and you do a great job of service, you take care of people, and I think it's going to be something that really is deserved. More importantly, popular or unpopular. I do some unpopular things, too, if it's right for the country. I do what's right. But so those people that have jobs in restaurants, whatever the job may be, a tipping job, we're not going after for taxes anymore. This will be ended.
Now, I'm good with that, man. I mean, that is a no-brainer to me. Now, he can't do it his first day in office. You can't do an executive order on cutting taxes or not collecting taxes for people who are tipped employees. But if it's part of a broader plan, a tax plan, like making the 2017 tax cuts permanent, I'm good with that. Because, by the way, that's how you help people who are likely in the middle class, who are getting absolutely fleeced right now. And let's not kid ourselves. Most folks in the tipping industry don't report everything anyway. But it's getting harder to do as people are less likely to tip in cash. And we've had this conversation on the show. I mean, I want to start tipping more in cash when I can. I got to get cash on me first, and that's the hardest part, getting my butt out to the bank to get some cash. But, you know, tipping in cash obviously is better for those in the tipping industry. Not only does it allow them to maybe, stick that tip in the back pocket and, no one ever sees it kind of a deal, but also you don't have the credit card companies taking their share in the whole thing. So I'm all about it when I can do it and when it makes sense. But this is a great way to appeal to people who are, working those jobs. And those people are much more likely to have felt the pinch from inflation over the last 3-4 years. Those are people in the service industry who are oftentimes just trying to get by, make ends meet. And you tell them, hey, the best way I can help you is to make sure you don't have to worry about paying taxes on the money you make from tips. I think that'll connect with a lot of people. And those are oftentimes younger people, right? That's what matters here, too. You have younger people more likely to be working in that industry who are going to sit there and say, that actually sounds pretty good. That's something that I can get behind. And they probably also are people who might actually, lean the other way. Lean the way against Donald Trump, John.
Well, yeah, it hits the younger side. The one guy forgiving your tax or your
student
tuition
loans?
Debt, student loans, thank you. I wasn't paying that anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The tax thing will hit you right there on your paycheck.
Suddenly you'll say to yourself, wow, that sounds good.
You gain more immediately from that.
You do. Now, what do you do with those, 80,000 IRS agents that they want to hire if they can't go after tipped workers? That remains to be seen as far as I'm concerned, / all the jobs. But, this leads into a story that The Guardian wrote over the weekend. Headline, Trump vows to end taxation of tips at sweltering Las Vegas rally. And they go on to note that, this could be part of a broader plan where Trump makes permanent the Republican-passed individual tax cuts he signed into law back in 2017, which are set to expire in 2025. Here's a killer line from The Guardian. Tax experts estimate that doing so would raise U.S. deficits by some $4 trillion over a decade compared to current forecasts. It only raised deficits if our spending is not kept under control. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not convinced anybody's going to get our spending under control in this country. No one seems to have any interest in wanting to do the heavy lifting that needs to be done to reform Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid, which take up the bulk of the budget. But either way, it's unfair to say that this will automatically raise deficits because you don't know what the spending numbers are going to look like. And I'll add this, too. $4 trillion over a decade is chump change. We're at $35 trillion. What's another 4 over 10 years? What's that, $400 billion a year? That's nothing. I hate to say, but it is nothing. So if this is something that appeals to, younger voters here going into the fall of 24, it's a good political play. And if you're Trump, you got to be sitting back and saying, you know what, that makes sense. Now, on the other side, if we're battling for the youth vote, and all the polling suggests that Donald Trump is doing better with a younger set of the demographic than most Republicans typically have done, what is the response on the other side? Well, this headline here from Politico, Hollywood veterans and Biden alums launch super PAC to shore up his youth vote problem. The group called Won't Pack Down is eyeing a budget of up to $25 million, and they're specifically going to target disillusioned and hard-to-reach voters under the age of 30. So the movie industry creatives, with credits from Saturday Night Live to Parks and Rec to Big Mouth, have been meeting monthly for the last half a year in a rented loft-style conference room in downtown Los Angeles. They've pitched everything from 30 and 90-second influencer-style ads that could run on Instagram Reels to highly produced scripted ads. The group's first actual ads, which will only appear on social media and streaming platforms, are expected to drop in early July. So basically, all the Hollywood weirdos are sitting there in Los Angeles, sitting around the table saying, what do we do to get the under 30 crowd to vote for the old guy who doesn't know where he is half the time? What do we do? Well, they're going to dump their own money, apparently, into this campaign and try to reach these folks with their own money. I know that people have fallen for the Hollywood gambit before, but if there's ever a time when it's not going to work, I feel like it's now, because we just don't have the superstars that we've had. The way the media, the way that entertainment at large has become so fragmented. There's just like not that one. I mean, outside of maybe Taylor Swift, and all indications are, I don't think she's going to do anything this year. I've been predicting that, and if I'm wrong, I'll eat my words. But I don't think Taylor Swift's going to do anything on behalf of Pops this year. But outside of her, I don't know who's going to move the needle, really. Especially when the economic pain that young people are suffering are a big reason why they're fleeing this guy. If it's truly about economic pain, who's going to sit there and, struggle to pay their rent, struggle to pay for groceries, and then be like, well, George Clooney told me to go vote for Pops here, so I better go do it. Who's actually going to be thinking like that when the biggest driver of these young people away from the guy in charge is the economy? Maybe it works, but it's going to be a fascinating case study to see if it does.